Patriarchs and Generations. That this phrase, what Jesus says after Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that he's God of the living, not of the dead, it's knowledge that could be had only by someone that's been on the other side of heaven. So they were going into the generation riddle, who's dead and who's alive, and the seven husbands, or however, that story went. And Jesus said, you're not getting it. It's not about that. He's God of the living means they never died. So Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are alive. And that's why I say that this is the strongest theological manifest, the strongest theological statement anybody in the Bible has made. Because how can you and I know that Abraham's alive, that Isaac is alive, and Jacob's alive? We cannot. But Jesus was there. He was the one securing their eternal living. So coming to earth, he from the other side of heaven, he's seen them alive. He's seen them alive on the other side of heaven. And when he was talking to the Pharisees and the Sadducees about that story, he said, "You're not understanding. This does not mean anything about Abraham. This does not mean anything about Isaac. This does not mean anything about Jacob. This means that God is God of the living, not of the dead." Again, such understanding could not be given by me, you, or anybody on this side of heaven. Such understanding could be given only by someone like Jesus, who's been on the other side of heaven and has seen them there alive for eternity. But apart from that, it is an intergenerational message that he's God of the grandfathers, the fathers, and the grandchildren and the children, meaning that faith is given from generation to generation, at least must be given. That's how they did it with the case of Abraham, the covenant. What does this mean for us? For the Old Testament covenant, this was clear. The land was the promise. He gave it to Abraham. It meant it was given to Isaac. It meant it was given to Jacob. It meant it was given to Jesus, and it meant that it was given to us. But the Pharisees were very particular about what type of teacher they listened, and they were very particular on the fact that it had to be somebody who was a generational Levi, this established authority, a generational teacher. It wasn't just somebody that started learning 20 or 30 or 40 years ago, but somebody who generations of wisdom were brought into their family, and he was raised into this wisdom. Sometimes we recycle the faith. And let me explain what this means. Our generation is in church, in faith, believing God, and then something happens and somebody just falls on the side, backslides, or whatever, however you want to explain it. And then in our old age, we have to come back and rediscover faith, recycle the faith. And then it may not get transferred into the next generation. They may need to discover it by themselves. And then the same thing happens with them. And maybe then the process gets repeated with the next generation. 3 generations into it, we're still stomping at the same spot. We're not growing in faith, but we're still at the same spot where our father and grandfather was in the faith, never really progressing. That's not how Jesus explained the faith of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And in the Bible, Abraham, well, the 3 of them did the same thing, but one was more predominant. One of them built tents, one of them built wells, if you go read in Genesis, and one of them built altars. And Abraham was the one with the altars. And then Jacob has inherited Isaac's wells. Isaac was more of a tent, the guy that pitched the tent, because it said when he brought Rebekah, he took her to the tent of his mother. Anyhow, this was the characteristics of the 3, but each of them, like when Isaac built tents, he also built altars like his daddy. And when Jacob dug wells, he redug the wells of his father and rebuilt the altars of his grandfather. So his faith went up, progressed from generation to generation. Does this make sense? Yeah. So he didn't just rediscover altars and stay there. He built an altar. And when he fought with the angel, he built an altar, but that wasn't just it. And he He had a tent. He had a tent. His sons had tents. That wasn't just it. He went another step in the faith, digging wells, which Isaac did, but we don't know if Abraham did. So what I preached this message on uh, father patriarchs and generations. Basically, the idea of faith is that it's transferred from generation to generation, so we can know God even better, have the next experience with God, the furthest experience uh, with God, and it's understood in the phrase Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob that Jacob knew the altars of his granddaddy. How could he not when his father was offered at one? This was not forgotten. His father told him the story. I was a little boy like you, and your granddaddy brought me over here, and God provided a sacrifice. This was a family story. This wasn't something forgotten. And we know that when Jacob started living his life as a grown man, he redug his father's wells. So these were accomplishments in the faith, levels of the faith that were not forgotten. They were transferred from generation to generation.